bunch of the pieces. So would you like to?
Yeah, sure. I'll just speak like this. All right, so the first song. Hey guys. My name's Miguel. I'm a sophomore here. I would just like to maybe first introduce the first song. The first song is called In a Mellow Tone. It was originally composed for a big band. It was originally composed for a big band, written by Duke Ellington. I have arranged a 4-hour process considering that we have three members of the brass section. So yeah. just wanted to quickly recognize the members of this jazz club. So on trombone, we have Owen Ryan. On trumpet, we have Jacob Kaiserman. On tenor sax, we have Alexander Kim. On guitar, we have Robbie Shear. On drums, we have Christopher Cronelon. And on bass, we have Nando Barcelona. Alright, so on to the next piece now. This piece is very special because you notice that it just has my name. It really, next to it on the program, it's called Green Jay, but what it really should be called is the Green Jay Suite. Because it's not just one piece, it's actually 3 pieces that the jazz club composed during our time during this year, and we melded them into one giant mashup, if you will. So, if you will, this is the Green Jay Suite.
a sophomore class tour de force, I would say. All right, so we're going to bring up now the Regis Jazz Band, led by Mr. Mosher. And just have a little scene change here. We're going to be doing two tunes for you tonight. One is Autumn Leaves, and the other is Neil Hefti's Cute. Cute. Excited to hear it. As we're getting ready to bring Rock Band up to do our 80s Meltdown, finish out the program, we'd like to just offer our thanks to, of course, the faculty, staff, and administration of Regis, and particularly to Father Lanehart and Dr. Toshe for supporting this important work here in the school. And as you know, music programs come in all shapes and sizes. We're very blessed here to have what we have at Regis, and I can't wait for many more years ahead to see it expand and grow and see your sons become formidable musicians as we move forward together. We certainly think that music in our community and in the community at large is so important now more than ever with all the changes and everything that are happening in the world. And so we appreciate that our administration and our staff and our faculty support it here. Special thanks to the Regis Rep Theater, Ms. Jenna Ricing, producer, Mr. Jim Langan, who helped with the set. I must also really thank Jake Glenn, who could not be here tonight, but who did all this artwork, the concert artwork that you see on your programs and projected behind us here, and did the formatting and the layout of the program. And of course, our entire tech crew, led of course by Seamus Wiseman, our resident stage manager, and Zach Espiritu, who did the lighting design for and then, let's see, a whole host of other people who are listed in the program, but last but certainly not least, thank you to you for supporting your sons in their musicianship. This is really an important thing, and I always tell them that art is what? Work. Art is work, and it's work whether you do it as a hobby, avocationally, or whether you do it as your profession. And it's such an important thing in the world, and we are very blessed to do it, and I certainly am blessed to be here and to work with them. So we thank you again for coming this evening, and let us know what you thought after the concert, and come say hello. Thank you immensely to my two colleagues, Mr. Rob Mosier and Mr. Andrew Gonzalez, for their incredible work as well.
Hello, everybody. Hi. We're going to start off with a rock and roll tradition, which is tuning before you play. Ooh. Can I get an E? Are you guys in too long? Tuning goes far back in the rock and roll tradition, as do the violins. Ask your bad jokes. Okay. Hey. Is everybody ready for rock now?
We'll see you again.
There seems to be another ensemble waiting in the wings.
Okay, they're going rogue.
We're looking for encore water, but there's an encore guy. Good luck.
Let's have all of our musicians come down. Everybody, the whole group, everybody, come down, guys. I would say that I would be remiss if I did not take just a moment to recognize our seniors, our senior musicians. So if you're a senior, can you just come to the front now? Never get away from that song. whisper. But you guys, thank you for all that you've done for the Regis community and also for navigating the waters of changing music program and everything like that. You've been very resilient and have grown tremendously. We're going to miss you quite a bit. So, and thank you to all of our musicians. Zach, can we get a house center? And thank you all again for coming. Have a great weekend.